Hoopballers, welcome back. Sunday morning / Saturday night, depending on where you are in the world. I am Lyle Swithenbank. This is Saturday Night Lyle, episode 12, I think we're up to, and I welcome my good friend Steve Vidovich. Welcome, Steve. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good over here in California. We're Saturday night over here. Hoping that you guys tune in and feel free to ask any questions in our live chat right here, and we'll get to them as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. And you're right in the actual the namesake time period, like you're watching it live. Whereas for me, I'm in the future, obviously on Sunday morning, casting back all of my knowledge from things that have already happened down under. So, exciting times. We've got a big show today, guys. We're going to talk hoops. There's been a little bit of news. Not too much because obviously people are in lockdown, so not doing too much. If you watch TikTok and all of those sort of things that the kids use these days, well, you'll see a whole heap of dancing and things like that, which all the NBA stars seem to be entertaining themselves with. I did see Shaq and his family doing a dance routine on the internet the other day. That was quite interesting because the bloke's about 7 feet or 7'2" or something and moves like a ballerina, so that was pretty good. But so have you been keeping up with the social media at all, Steve, with the NBA guys?
I'm not a big user of TikTok. I think I'm a little bit older than the generation that uses it. But speaking on Shaquille O'Neal, did you know that he owns something like 6 tigers?
Oh, what?
Six pet tigers.
That is insane. Well,
yeah, I'm amazed. Somebody told me the other day that Shaq had 6 grown tigers that he has as pets. That's what I want to see on TikTok.
Yeah, get them in there. Where are the tigers and why aren't they dancing? That's what I want. I've seen that Netflix show Tiger King advertised, and that looks like an absolute. I watched about 5 minutes of it and was like, I'll have to come back to this. I need a couple of beers before I settle in and enjoy this. But that also looks like pretty good viewing. But obviously, viewers don't tune in now to Tiger King. You're watching this, so stay with us because we've got a big show ahead. But it is interesting to see all the guys and the athletes. I know. Well, everyone seems to be on lockdown and using these social media platforms to sort of express themselves. You see a whole heap of workouts. You're seeing these dances. You're seeing commentary. We're still here. It's Saturday night, and we're on talking about basketball that's not even running. So look at us go. It's the world that we live in at the moment. But always good fun. I suppose the big news this week was the purchase of the Forum in LA by Steve Ballmer of the Clippers. Bought out the stadium. I think it's in Inglewood from my understanding, which is in LA. It's somewhere. And you're probably a better place to talk about that. But that was bought out for $400 million. Basically, that'll be the Clippers stadium, or they're going to demolish that and build their state-of-the-art stadium alongside it or in that place. From what I understand, I think that was the idea is that they've moved them from the Staples Center so that they have their own place to live and not play a game underneath all of the Lakers banners every time they ran out. Do you know much about that, Steve?
Yeah, so what I've heard is that the owner of the Forum is James Dolan, the infamous Knicks owner. And so Steve Ballmer bought the piece of property across the street from the Forum in order to build a stadium there. But James Dolan did not want that to happen because then every single artist that comes through would no longer play at the Forum, but instead want to play at the state-of-the-art new stadium that would be the Clippers Stadium. So instead of going through what I would figure would have been a lawsuit if Ballmer went ahead with trying to build a stadium in spite of the Forum, Ballmer chose to go the route of just buying the Forum outright. So that he didn't have to deal with James Dolan. If only Ballmer could buy the Knicks.
Yeah, exactly. That has to be next on the list, surely. I mean, we're still waiting for James Dolan to pay his staff. So, he's probably Dolan to pay his staff, Steve Ballmer is an absolute legend from all reports, from the way he acts on the court, on the sidelines. He just froths NBA. And so to do that for the Clippers, you know, it's pretty big investment to do that. And, you know, all credit to him. If you got the funds, why wouldn't you? Gets James Dolan out of LA as well, from all reports.
So here's a question: when they do build this this new stadium, which fan base wins the most? Is it the Clipper fan base that they finally get their own stadium and they're no longer in the shadow of the Lakers? Or is it the Laker fans that they no longer have to have Clipper games happen in their stadium and they can have a stadium all to themselves and kind of kick the Clippers out? Obviously, from like a monetary standpoint, Staples loses, but from fan perspective, which fan base do you think wins more here?
You know, I actually had a chat about this with my brother the other day, and so it's a timely question. Actually, I'm well versed on it. You know, I think that by moving the Clippers out, that the Clippers fans probably win. You know, they get their own identity. They're no longer little brother. They've got their own sort of set area. I think Inglewood's a little bit out of central LA, isn't it? Like it's a tiny
yeah, it's probably about 30, 40 minutes from downtown where Staples is.
Yeah. So, you know, that then gives it its own identity. The suburbs surrounding that are all of a sudden going, well, look, Clippers are right here. I'm not going to commute 40, 45 minutes into the Staples Center when I could go and see a game 5 minutes down the road at the new Clippers facility. So, you know, I think the Clippers win. I think, well, probably both fan bases really, but I think the Clippers are probably the ones that get that identity. They're going to be spending cash in that area. They're going to be around. They're going to be in with the fans. Whereas probably, you know, at the Staples Center, you're a part-time occupant because the Lakers are there using it as well. So you're always going to be I suppose, the guests, I guess, at the Staples Center, as long as the Lakers occupy it. But that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that the Clipper fans win more. But at the same time, I think that Laker fans are excited to have the Clippers no longer share a stadium with them. I think they would be even more excited if the Clippers moved to Seattle or another city so that they could have LA all to themselves. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I think both fan bases win, but I would lean Clipper fan base wins slightly more.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I think it only means good things if that rivalry arcs up even more and we look like we were in for a really good Western Conference final matchup. You know, it looked like it was going to be absolutely fire. But, you know, what will be will be. We'll see what happens in December when they decide to restart the season.
I'm hoping they restart it before December. I'm really hoping that they do. I don't see. I personally believe that they'll start the season again in terms of just playoffs, but I don't see it going that long. I'm hoping June that they just have a few exhibition games and then get right into the playoffs. But it all remains to be seen. So.
Absolutely. It is it's just unknown times. You know, you hear these rumblings and different commentators saying, well, we could be out in 2 months. I know I was watching a TV show over in Australia. It's called Q&A. It talks about, it's a panel by the Australian Broadcasting Network. They talk about, our corporation actually, should I say, the AWST. And basically they were talking about that we're really in lockdown potentially until this vaccine comes out. It is so difficult to be able to predict when that will be, and it's being fast-tracked. But at the same time, if you bring people out too early, then all of a sudden you're back to square one. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I mean, for all of our sakes, for our sanity, please let us outside and let us have some sport. You know, at the moment, I've been betting on Ukrainian table tennis. Seems to be the only market that's still running. So, and I'm not doing well, not remotely doing well on this Ukrainian table tennis. It's not even a joke.
Who's the hottest Ukrainian tennis player out there?
At the moment, it is. 1 second, because I'll just check my multi. Well, it's not Edward Rubstov because he lost me money. So, or Ruslan Ivanov. So I'm going to say Vasily Sirasov is who I'm backing at the moment. As
All right.
he's got pretty good odds. There are good odds in the Ukrainian table tennis, but at the same time, gamble responsibly because it's a rabbit hole.
Are you still betting on the weather over there?
Yeah, well, I got caught out the other day. It was overcast today. I was predicting sunny, so that was $3,000 that I lost. But it is. It is just crazy times, and people have got to make money. These betting companies are obviously throwing these crazy markets out there. I think the only sports, esports is a big thing you can bet on at the moment, and things like that. So, people, there's still ways to entertain yourselves, and these betting corporations are still going to keep making money. So, support local business, I guess. But we might digress from the news and move on to a little bit of predictions. We're going to put our wizard hats on now, and we're going to talk about not the Washington Wizards, because that'd be terrible and ill-fitting, but we're going to talk about some potential players that were moved in the off-season or at the trade deadline. They haven't yet played for their teams, either through injury or, mostly through injury, I guess, and then the lockdown. Do you have any guys that are on your radar, Steve, for when the season comes back that might pull on some new colours?
Yeah, one guy in particular, there was a report last week on a guy named Justice Winslow, who got traded from the Heat to the Grizzlies in that Andre Iguodala deal. So his teammate Dylan Brooks hinted at the fact that Winslow would join the starting unit when he was able to return to action. And then the report that I heard was going to be a sure thing, basically, that Winslow was going to enter the starting rotation when he was able to return, which he was on the cusp of returning right when the lockdown happened. He was very close. He's been out with a back injury for a couple months before the hiatus. I think he only played in one game and then got ruled out after that for another month or so. And he's a guy who's shown a lot of potential, both in reality and fantasy. I am very intrigued to see what he does next year. I definitely think that he could be at least a top 75 guy, and I don't think he'll be drafted like that. Obviously, health is the big thing for Winslow, but he's a athletic forward who can handle the ball, play point forward, could be really nice to have a secondary ball handler next to Ja Morant that isn't slow-mo. So I really like the fit of Winslow in that Grizzlies unit. It seems like their starting unit for next year, or when the season resumes, would be Morant, Brooks, Winslow, Clark, and Valanciunas. And that sounds like a pretty solid NBA starting lineup as far as I'm concerned. I guess the guy who would lose, I don't know exactly who the guy who would lose his spot is there on that unit. But I'm really high on Winslow. I honestly think he could be a steal next year. There's some guys that are injured that don't play for a season, and then the next year, they're undervalued. There are other guys who aren't undervalued, but I think Winslow will be a guy that is undervalued going into next year. I think that in pro leagues, his value will probably be closer to where he finishes. But if you're in a league with your buddies, I would definitely recommend looking at Winslow going into next season.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, probably the guy, and if you can, 1 second, chainsaw in the background.
So I'm going to look up while Lyle is dealing with
chainsaw in the outside. So we sorted that out. It was killing me. So probably the guy that loses out, you'd think then would be JJJ, I guess, in the Memphis starting lineup. If Clark was to come in, otherwise you're playing Clark in that 6-man role.
Clark would be in the 6-man role. I had a slip there with JJJ. That's what I think their rotation would be.
Yeah, I mean JJJ for me, I got his jumper for my birthday actually. My brother got it for me. I was like, "You're sick." I'm so high on this guy. I think he is just awesome. I mean, Justice Winslow, I think, gives them that other ball handling option, like you said. Ja Morant can have a bit of time off the ball as well, which I think is a great idea. Develop those skills as well as being able to move without the ball. I think it's super important for any young guard or any player, really, especially to create space. When you've got big guys like JV and I suppose JJJ Clark coming through. And they've got Gorgie Deng there as well now, I think. All of those players are pretty good. And then you're sitting there adding Winslow, who's had a year off. We still don't know the extent of how bad that injury was at the Heat, whether or not he was slowed down in his actual recovery so that he could be traded. But at the same time, it's all conjecture. I haven't heard anything. So I scoot. But, I think that's a really important sort of thing to have a look at. I think the Grizzlies are an up-and-coming team. They're scary. And, for my Blazers, that's not good because they were meant to be average and we were meant to be eighth. So, I don't know what will happen from there. But, I keep an eye on Justice Winslow. And absolutely, next year I'll be drafting him in probably the top. If you can get him at the top 120, top 130, you're going to get 75 value out of him. We've seen that in the past. So, and that's from the fantasy perspective. So, I mean, good luck. Go and get him, I think. If you can get him in the 5th, 6th, 7th, even later, 9th, 10th round, you'd be pretty happy with that. But we'll see what Yahoo ranks him at or ESPN ranks him up next year.
And another thing with Winslow is if we're able to see the NBA come back and the playoffs happen and Winslow is healthy for the Grizzlies, it'll give you another little sample. It'll give you a tiny little sample that you can't extrapolate an entire season from, but we want to see him play with the Grizzlies. We haven't seen it yet. So it remains to be seen if he could produce top 75. So it's even more from a fantasy perspective, it would be better to see games happen so we can see what these guys look like in a uniform. But we don't want to see too much so that other people see it, just enough.
Yeah, exactly. Just so that we have the little nugget of information and don't have to tell anyone. So, this was the one time we're ever going to mention this. We'll see how we go. Another guy that we actually talked about off air, what about Kevin Durant? I mean, he moved in the off-season as well, and we haven't seen the Nets in the Final Four. I did see a tweet yesterday, day before, saying that there was a story that surfaced saying that the Nets are going to look to make another move and add that third star. I mean, I don't know. Do you move Jared Allen? Do you move Karis LeVert? Spencer Dinwiddie? All those guys are probably on the trade table if that's the case. I don't know who you go after to go and get, but we don't know what this Nets team looks like yet. I think,
I'm very curious to see what Kevin Durant looks like when he is able to return. Obviously, he was one of the best basketball players on the planet when he played, but an Achilles injury it sets you back quite a bit as a player. As any human being carrying your Achilles, the comeback is very challenging when you're playing a professional sport. It's even more challenging with the wear and tear on your body. Over since 2015-16, so going back to OKC, his last season in OKC, he was ranked the second best player. In his first year with the Warriors, he was the first. His second year with the Warriors, so 17-18, he was the third. And then the last season, he was eighth. The last season before he tore his Achilles in the finals, he was the 8th ranked player. So what would your prediction be? Where would you want to draft him? Let's say you're sitting there at 8. Let's say you're sitting there at 8 with the 8th pick and Durant is still on the board. Would you take Durant?
What I'd hope is that no one took him and they're like, well, he's been injured, so I'm going to pick him up so I can get him in the second round. But, I think the top 5 has been set. I think even with Towns' injury, you're still drafting him in the top 5. I think you've got AD, Harden, Giannis, Kat, probably Lillard sneaks in there as well in that top 5. And then from there, you've got guys like Kawhi, you've got guys like LeBron, Steph Curry will be back in there. All of these guys are probably in there in that same sort of region. I think I do take him at 8. Honestly, if he looks healthy, I mean, he already is starting to look healthy from all the videos they're putting out. He's moving. I mean, he's not a heavy guy. You know, it seems to be the guys that are 7 feet and built like, you know, brick houses. You know, that's where they tend to have a bit of issues with the leg injuries and stuff like that. Hopefully, him being a bit slighter of frame means that he comes back a bit easier and you know, he comes back a bit quicker and doesn't lose that mobility. That's probably the main thing. If he comes back slow, that's where we lose that a bit. But again, he's still a deadly scorer. He's going to get his, like, let's be honest. So I think I would take him. I'd take him in the top 10, definitely. I think if he's there and you're looking at guys around that area, I suppose it'd be I suppose Jimmy Butler, you're looking at Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, all those sort of guys are in that range. Rudy Gobert probably falls in there. Who else would be top 10? Rashawn Holmes.
So would you take Kyrie before you took Durant, or would you take Durant before you?
Oof.
Who would you pick first? You're at pick number 8. Both of those guys are on the board.
I think I'd take Durant. Honestly, I think the reward for taking Durant at 8 is higher than taking the reward for Kyrie, like at Kyrie at 8. Do you know what I mean? I think I could get similar production from Kyrie at my second pick at pick. What would that work out as? 12. You know, I could probably end up with both of them actually. But if you in the traditional snake draft, so in 12 terms, so you'd be what would that be? Pick 16 or something. You'd be looking at probably a Kemba Walker or someone around that area anyway. Nick Vucevic, all those guys that are going to produce at a pretty high level in your second pick anyway. So you'd be pretty happy with that. DeAndre Ayton, I think, deserves to be in the top 20, even with all these issues. But what would you think? You think Kevin Durant?
You know, if I'm at 8, I don't think I take Durant, to be honest. I love Kevin Durant. I love his basketball game. I'm so nervous to see what it looks like after the torn Achilles. And with a new situation, playing with Kyrie, they have a lot of mouths to feed. They got Caris LeVert. They got Dinwiddie. I'm just very nervous to pick a guy in the first round who's coming off a torn Achilles. I agree with you. If he falls to the second round, I would maybe take a chance on him. But to be honest, if there was a safer bet in the second round, so I'll look on Basketball Monster right now. And I mean, right now this year, Vucevic is at 18. Trae Young is at 17. This is 9Cat. I would take Vucevic, Trae Young. I think I might even take Jonathan Isaac before I took Durant. I would take Embiid, Jimmy Butler for sure. I mean, the first guy I see on this list where I might go Durant over him is Kyle Lowry, just because I don't know how much his body will last. I don't know what the situation in Toronto will be. Will he be on the team to end the season? Will he get traded to another team? So Durant would be a no for me in the first round. In the second round, he would be a maybe. In the third round, for sure thing. Sure thing in the third round. But he's not going to the third round, so I think I'm not going to have any Kevin Durant's next year. Is what I'm thinking.
I don't think I'll be able to snaffle him up either. I think I'd probably get a bit gun shy, I guess, when I get him. They always build a bit conservatively and just try to get guys that are safe picks. You know, Vucevic's going to play, so that's a guy that I think I get nearly every year is Nick Vucevic, and you pick him up at pick 20 or 25, and, you know, you get fluctuating between top 10 and top 20 value all year. He's just so good. Big fan. For a guy that in the modern day basketball is nearly irrelevant, but still gets his. So, you know, happy with that. Another guy we talked about, Clint Capella. He's a bit of an unknown, a question mark at the Atlanta Hawks. You know, he fits into a young lineup. I think he himself's only about 24 or 25. Rockets ejected him because they decided they didn't like centers. I think it might be like a Daryl Morey height complex or something. Guys over 6'5" are too tall. Get out of here. So, yeah, you know, they traded him over there. He joins, I think, they got John Collins, they got whether Deadman sits there as well. You know, they got a pretty good centre lineup there. Join Trey Young, as well as the three-headed monster of Herder. What's the other bloke's name?
Hunter. And Cam Reddish.
Yeah, and Cam Reddish as well, exactly. You know, that team's exciting. You give them a couple of years of playing together, and all of a sudden, you've got Lob City version 2. You know, that looks exciting. If I'm Trey Young, I'm saying, set me a screen, roll to the basket, and I'm going to sit it up there and you can get hold of it, you know, every time. No one's going to stop those guys. They're too athletic. You know, Clint Capella, for me, I think, is an absolute stud. I think he's fantastic. It comes down to how good your point guard is, of course, as any big man. But at the same, especially a pick and roll big man like that relies on his athleticism to score, really. You know, he looks like a young DeAndre Jordan with Chris Paul set up. You know, you can see those comparisons straight away. Guys like that where they're going to get your 10 and 10, couple of blocks, percentages are going to be 60 plus. Free throws are going to hurt you, but you know you live with that. And a couple of blocks, couple of steals, awesome. I think you know, a defensive anchor for that team. How do you think he fits in?
Yeah, you know, I actually really like the fit of Capella with the Hawks. One thing you said about the Hawks that we'll be doing our features here at Hoop Ball in the next few weeks. They're going to be called Season So Far, and we're going to do them on every team. And so with the Hawks, they have one of the youngest squads in my recent memory of guys that are highly touted draft picks. They're part of the future. They're not just a young guy on a two-way contract. Reddish, Herder, Hunter, Young, Capella, Collins. Those are all extremely young players, and none of them have reached their full potential. Maybe Capella would be the closest to being a veteran, so to speak. I think he fits in really nicely. I think the only true competition from a fantasy perspective would be John Collins. So maybe you see his rebounding numbers dip slightly with Collins there. But with Trey Young feeding him the ball this year in a 9-cat basis per game value, Capella was a third round value. And I don't see that changing all that much. Maybe he slips a half a round with the new look Hawks. But I would definitely take him in the third round with the knowledge that he's a god-awful free throw shooter. So please stay away from the free throw line if you're on my team. But yeah, I have high hopes for Capella. The Hawks, I think they're still a little bit away from being NBA relevant, but they got a nice core that they're building around, and it'll be interesting to see what they do this offseason. I really like Capella. I would take him in the late third, early fourth round, I think, of drafts.
Yeah, completely agree. And, you know, John Collins has shown that he can shoot from the perimeter as well, and he likes stepping out and shooting it. So I think that fit is, if you're going to get any player to put next to him, it's almost perfect because Capella is paint and John Collins is everything. So, you know, and he seems to thrive against those power forwards that are a little bit smaller. He stretches the floor. He's almost a LaMarcus Aldridge type build. You know, I love John Collins. Probably a bit more athletic than LMA ever was. But at the same time, got that shooting stroke. He shows he can shoot threes. He can shoot 25 feet, 20 feet in the paint, pick and roll big man. You know, I'm excited for the Hawks. And in the East, they'll probably finish on top. So, you know, even with their 15-year-old average age. But, you know, that team is exciting. That's a team. They'll all be locked in those rookie contracts as well. I think Capella's on a 4-year deal anyway. I think he signed with the Rockets or thereabouts. So, you know, that team's going to be able to grow together. They're going to be able to build together. Atlanta has a great basketball culture as well. People get around it. Great fan base. So, you know, it's pretty exciting for that team. I think that's one to watch in terms of the big improvers. I think you're going to get some exciting basketball out of them. You might not get the results straight away, but I think there's going to be some games where you go, these guys are going to be pretty good. What we thought the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to be like, but then just never did. So, you know, guys like that, and teams like that, that's exciting, and that's why we're waiting for this basketball to come back so we can find out the what ifs, the big question marks. And you made mention of the hoop ball, the season so far series coming out. That's going to be super exciting. You were touting the Warriors. You were saying you've done a little bit of an expose on them coming out soon.
Yeah, we'll be releasing the first one, so we're going to be doing it in reverse order of the NBA standings so far. So unfortunately, my Warriors will be the first team that'll get an article posted up. It'll come up on Tuesday, and this actually ties in nicely with talking about the Hawks and the Wolves, and something I noticed when I was writing this article that I wish I noticed early on in the season when I was watching as a fan. So these teams, the Hawks, the Wolves, their issue is on the defensive end of the court. They don't play defense, and they're not going to win any games when they don't play defense. Defense wins championships. There's no other way of putting it. You can have a great offense, but the reason why the Warriors were so dominant for so many years was because of their defense. So I looked at the first two games the Warriors played this year, and I think this is a good lesson for fans of any team to watch to start a season. So they had a new look team. First two games of the season, they were outshot from the field by over 20%. In the first game to the Clippers, they shot 39% from the field. The Clippers shot 65% or so. In the second game against the Thunder, the Warriors shot 33% from the field, and the Thunder shot like 54%. It's on the top of my head, but it was over 20% difference in the first two games. I should have known as a Warrior fan that the season was over right there. They still had Steph Curry. They still had Draymond Green. They had D'Angelo Russell, who I don't think he plays defense. Another reason why I think the Wolves are going to struggle. You got to play two sides of the court. After the second game of the season, there was a very interesting quote that Draymond gave that I felt like should have just tied up the Warriors season right there. So Draymond, let me find this quote here. So he goes, after the second loss of the Thunder, Draymond went on to say, everybody loved our offense, but it wasn't our offense that was making us great. It was our defense. I've said that for years. Our defense right now, speaking of the second game of the season, our defense right now is non-existent. I don't even think we know what defense is right now. That quote sums up the Warriors season. They didn't even need to play any other games after those first two. I guess it was a tryout for other players. But if you are watching your team start off the season and they are getting the difference in field goal percentage is over 20% consistently, you know that your team is lottery bound. They're not going to make the playoffs. Basketball has two sides of the court. It's not just one side. Even though offense is flashy and fun, defense helps you win games. Without it, you're not going to go anywhere.
Well, I mean, we look throughout history, all of the teams that decided that they were just going to outshoot other teams to win, faded off into the ether. You have a look at the 7 seconds of less Suns. All they did, run up the court, shoot. We'll get a rebound, run up the court and shoot. Houston Rockets, Mike D'Antoni, you're getting hammered for this, but, his teams are traditionally defensive sieves. He sits there, gets the ball, shoot it. All right, they score. Well, as long as it's a 2, we can hit a 3. We'll be up +1. Hard defensive teams have always been so important. You have a look at even the Warriors under Mark Jackson, had a different, I suppose, mindset than the team under Steve Kerr in terms of that defensive mentality. They put Bogut in that center role there, and all of a sudden you had this hard nut that was like, well, I'm going to floor you. You come at me, you're going to go on the ground. And they put him in the right positions to be able to, 1, get those hard screens, get the shooters free, and then 2, lock down or anchor that center position. And I think that is it's obvious in teams where they don't have that defensive ideology. You can see it at the Timberwolves. They all want to score. None of them want to defend at all. You get guys like a Coogee who are good defenders, but at the same time, that's one guy. Same thing, Robert Covington. You're sitting there before he was traded, obviously, but you know, those defensive-minded guys can only do so much. If it's not a team mentality, then you're not going to get anywhere. You can't win without defense. We can see it with with the Portland Trailblazers this year. We had that defensive mentality because we had Nurkic. And then we bring in Hassan Whiteside. Yes, elevated block stats and steals and stuff like that. But you get 2 blocks. That's only 2 plays that you've actually got blocks on. You get 2 steals. That's only 2. You got a whole heap of more plays. And there's a lot of times where he gets caught, sleep on defense, or, you know, just gets blown by. And teams can't be successful without that defensive mentality. I completely agree. And, you know, Draymond hit the nail on the head. He's not usual for doing so, but, you know, quotes like that, you could see it with the Warriors this year, unfortunately. And it was more of, I think you knew going in as well. As soon as Curry went down, it was sitting there going, well, we're in a bit of strife here. And I think Wiggins could turn into a good defender. You know, I think the future's bright for the Warriors. That's probably a team that's going to take a big jump. But with Clay, Curry, and I just think Wiggins there's another level for him. And if he doesn't have to play ISO ball and have that mentality that he needs to be the guy, you know, he could be a serviceable player going forward.
And don't forget about Obi Toppin.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, he needs to be in there.
Their newest prospect.
Get him there. Yeah, they're very keen. Well, I heard there was rumblings, and yeah, he looks like an absolute stud. Obi, get him in. He's good. He's declared. He's ready to go.
Oh yeah. And then when he gets drafted number 1, you know, you got Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan. Yeah. I don't know what you'd say after it, but Obi-Wan.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And he should be straight in. I think that guy is an absolute gun as well. Get him in there. He's been. I read a little article about him after you mentioned him last week. I was like, well, I'm going to find out who this guy is, and he was an absolute stud. He was going to declare for the draft and came back, and what did he turn into? All defensive player of his region or something, and all player of the year or something like that, and absolutely dominated in college. So you know, get him in, draft him. Fair enough. And if you don't, Portland will. So, well, I'll tell them to anyway. They probably won't listen, but we'll try. I think it might be time for Mug of the Week. I think that's where we're at. Have you got a mug this week, Steve?
You know, I wanted to throw you off a little bit here. So tonight I haven't chosen a mug, but instead I've chosen one of my favorite glasses. Good. So this you know, means a lot to me. When I was a little kid, it was a little Bugs Bunny, 50, you know, happy birthday from Bugs. And then they got all the characters on the back.
That's awesome.
So I feel like a little kid when I get to drink out of this glass.
Bit of nostalgia. How good. Yeah, I like that one. That's good. It's it's got a bit more going on than mine today. So I've got my handcrafted clay mug from Warple, WA, so in the south of Western Australia. Made by the pottery guys down there. Lovely part of the world. It's not as full on as my panda mug, but you know, there's a bit of handcrafting on there, and there's some gum nut. Where's that? I can't do it backwards. There's the gum nuts. You know, it's yeah.
Wait, did you make that mug?
Hey?
Did you make that mug in a class?
No, I didn't make it. No, people much more talented than I did. No, I wish I did. I wish I had half the patience or talent to be able to do pottery. But I get my fix from watching Ghost on reruns flat out. So, you know, that's enough for me with the pottery fix. But let's go back and extrapolate what we sort of talked about before with the players that are going to take a leap, and let's have a look at what teams do you think are going to take a leap. Do you have any off the top of your head that you think they're getting players back? They might take the leap. The guys are going to get a little bit older. They're going to play together. You know, we mentioned the Hawks before. They look like they could be okay.
Yeah, you know, in the Eastern Conference, a team that I think is actually slightly in a better position than the Hawks. I really believe in the Bulls' chances of maybe getting that 8th seed. If I was to predict that one of those two teams, they kind of went into rebuilding at the same time. They both made the playoffs last, I think, in 2015 or 16. And since then, they've both gone into rebuild. The Bulls went the route of trading their star. The Hawks just got a lot of top draft picks and used them wisely. So with the Bulls, they got the core. They got Wendell Carter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine is an older, somewhat star. He's not a superstar, but you could call him like almost a star player. You got Chris Dunn, who seems like he's actually fitting within the team pretty nicely at the small forward position. Kobe White is a nice, young, talented point guard who, was showing signs of progress before the shutdown. So out of a team in the Eastern Conference that I think could make a step forward, the Bulls would be there for me. I wouldn't say that they would be like a finals contender. I don't even think they would get out of the first round. But as far as like a surprise playoff team, I would have to say that I believe in the Bulls' chances for next year.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree. That's starting five. I mean, LaVine, Sato, you've got Dunn there, you've got Kobe White. The guard centric sort of lineup is awesome. You play that. You've got Lauri Markkanen there, who is a gun. I mean, he's going through his second, third year blues or whatever it is. You get that. The big men still trying to work it out. People are now honing in on you a little bit more. He then got injured. I think Lauri's going to be I think he's going to be a gun. I think he's fine. Wendell Carter Jr. is absolute stud. And I think he's a guy as well that can take a jump. They got Daniel Gafford off the bench, Luke Cornett as well, that are these guys that have shown they can be serviceable big men. Completely agree. I don't think they, like you said, I don't think they're going to turn the world upside down. But at the same time, it would not surprise me in that Eastern Conference that they do make the 8th seed. And I think there's a few teams probably flittering around that sort of 8, 9, 10 area that could all jump in, which, that be interesting times in terms of to see how that all shapes out. Daniel Peterson.
Yeah, it looks like we got a question in here. So let me put it up here. So what do you think, Lyle? How do you feel about the Pacers next year?
Well, Pacers, let me settle in. This year I was really high on them, honestly. I thought that team is awesome. I watched a few Pacers games as well, and I thought, well, these guys look really good. They got Miles Turner, you got Sabonis. You're sitting there. You got Oladipo coming back. Who else they got? Malcolm Brogdon was a great signing, putting him there. You
got T.J. Warren.
Yeah, T.J. Warren as well. Yeah, I had him in all of my leagues, actually. T.J. Warren is an absolute gun and so underrated. He was at the Suns and couldn't shoot outside at all. Now he looks like the go-to guy. Put the ball in his hands, he's going to get you a bucket. I think that Pacer core, you can keep them together. You get Oladipo just healthy. You come back from an injury, you got rust. It's inevitable. You're torn your quad off. It's going to take a bit of time to come back, especially when you're a jumping athletic guard. We saw some glimmers of the old Oladipo that we've seen in the past. I think he's an absolute stud as well. Malcolm Brogdon is an absolute gun, and his back injury derailed him. No one can ever, I suppose, predict that happening, how bad and how much it affected him going forward. But in the early parts of the season, he was awesome. I think Miles Turner needs to get used to playing second fiddle to Sabonis. I think that'll take a bit of time, and I think for him, he's got a good head on his shoulders from all reports, and I've listened to a few interviews by him, and he seems pretty switched on. So I think if we can just grow that team together, Sabonis is going to go from strength to strength. That guy is an all-star. He's an absolute, I think he's a stud as well. And all of these guys, the bonus is that these guys are, 28, and below. These guys are right heading into that prime or in their prime at the moment. And I think as they grow together as a core, you're looking at a team that can make some real noise in the playoffs in the East and could challenge the Bucks and challenge the Raptors and challenge the Nets that are going to be revamped, Celtics as well. I honestly think that Philly's in there as well, but that top half of the Eastern Conference is going to be absolutely stacked, and I think the Pacers are going to be right in there. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. It was a shame that Jeremy Lamb had that terrible leg injury, so he's probably out for next season. But another thing about the Pacers, what I really liked about their last offseason, and I would expect it to say the same with the front office that they had, is I felt like they found really good guys on the fringes. I thought that, the signing of Justin Holiday, bringing him in as a guy coming off the bench to help score, especially when they were, ravaged by injuries, he stepped up in a pretty big way. Aaron Holiday, his younger brother, looks like he's developing. We don't know what he'll be in the NBA yet. He's still struggling a little bit to find his footing. And I really like the addition of TJ McConnell. He was excellent off the bench for them. He's not going to play a lot of minutes, but he's a great guy to have in your rotation. Just an assist frenzy guy. He's always looking to find a shot for someone else. Then they have Doug McDermott, who I actually, I wasn't a big fan of until this season, and he surprised me. I mean, he's a good shooter. He can handle the ball a little bit. He's getting a little bit older, so not only is their core strong, but what I'm impressed by the Pacers is I actually like their depth. I can't think of I'm in a dynasty team, and I got Goga Bitadze on that dynasty team, their young rookie. And I actually think that he's got some talent. He's, a year or two away still. So he's not going to make a big impact next year. But I just like what they're doing on the fringes. I think that they're setting themselves up for, long-term success, not short-term success. And I'm excited to see what they do this offseason. Depending on what the odds are to start next season, I could see a Pacers Eastern Conference final winner as a pretty intriguing bet, depending on what the odds are, because they never get love. No one ever gives the Pacers any respect because they don't have, Oladipo is not on the level of an Embiid or a Tatum or a Giannis, obviously, but they have a lot of guys, right? They're like the Raptors without Kawhi, right? They have a lot of guys that are just really good quality basketball players. So I'm really high on the Pacers. Good question, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In my parents' house, we have a picture of Paul George in his Pacers outfit. It was a signed thing that that I got, and that went straight up on the wall. So I've always, and when I first got in the NBA, Danny Granger was like my favorite. Like unreasonably so. I was just so high on Danny Granger. I just thought he was awesome. And I've always kept a bit of a side eye on the Pacers throughout the journey, and I just think, yeah, I completely agree with you. The depth is awesome. Doug McDermott has just calmed down as he's got older. That's why I think he's just, before he had to be that stud who was a scoring beast and then tried to do it in the NBA and just realized he was much too slow. He has taken strides. Jeremy Lamb, I completely agree. That ACL injury, especially so late in the season, that's a year. It's minimum a year with those things. I mean, you can rush back with modern medicine, but then you do your other one because you've overworked that side. Really high on the Pacers, and thanks Dan for throwing that up. Yeah, I do think the Pacers are going to be decent. They've got the players to defend. The big players such as Giannis, Siakam, guys like that. They're going to go at Embiid. I still don't know if Embiid is ever going to play a full season. I just don't think he lasts that long. He just loves an injury. They're attracted to him, which is a shame because he's such a talent. But if I actually like your proposition to bet on those guys to get out of the East. I don't think they win it all, but I think they could definitely cause some absolute upsets, and people are going to go, "What's happening here? Where do these guys come from? They've been there." I mean, what are they sitting at in the standings at the moment? I mean, they were still top. They're in the playoff bound at the moment. Weren't they? They're top 6 or something.
Yeah, I think they were in the top. I think they might have even had home court advantage when the season ended.
Yeah, I'll have a look. So, I mean, they were sitting at 5th. So, 39 to 26, great team. That's above Philly, above Brooklyn, above Orlando. And there's nothing below that. I mean, in the bottom 8 that look anyone's going to challenge them next year. I don't think there's any team in that bottom 8 that jumps in and takes their spot. And I think other teams are going to regress a little bit. I think Philly need to work out what they're doing. I think Philly, I don't know if the Ben Simmons Embiid experiment is working. People are still out on it, but again, we've watched Ben Simmons absolutely dominate when Embiid was out, and that was because the lane was wide open. He got a head full of steam and he just went straight down. He's going to get you triple-double without even attempting a 3. That's awesome. That's in the modern NBA, it's near on impossible. So, he is absolutely dominating. I think they need to go all in on Ben Simmons, put shooters around him. Embiid, I love you, but I think if you want to win, I give the keys to Aussie Ben. That's what I do. But or move him on at least, give him a chance to thrive. LeBron will have him.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the counter side of this argument. I think what the Sixers need to do is lean into Embiid. I think I am on a little bit of an island. I don't think that Embiid is necessarily injury prone. I think the injuries that happened to him this year, he had the finger injury where he popped it back into place and he went back out there and finished the game and then missed only a few games, way less than what the analysts were saying when the injury first happened. Yeah. And I think out of the two players, I think Embiid is the more dominant player, only because there are no other Embiids out there in the league. So if you build your team around one player, you want to take the guy who, in my opinion, is and yes, Simmons is very different type of player. He's extremely unique. He's a superstar, but I would lean Embiid over Simmons if I was the Sixers organization, because, having a guy, we watched the All-Star game and they went to Embiid in the final minutes of the game to post up and get a bucket. So if that's what's happening in an All-Star game when players are playing very hard in the fourth quarter with the format this year, I'm very high on Embiid, and I actually don't think that he's as injury prone as people. I think he's as injury prone as, let's say, a Chris Paul, and
Bradley
Chris
Beal.
Paul, or a Bradley Beal, or Karl Anthony Towns this year, Kyrie Irving. I mean, there's so many other guys, but for some reason, Embiid has that injury prone stamp on him. I'm curious to know how many games Ben Simmons missed this year versus Embiid.
Yeah, That's probably more this year, actually. Ben Simmons is out for a long time as well. Absolutely.
Let's see, Simmons 54 and Embiid 44. So
Ooh.
Yeah, Simmons. So Embiid did miss 10 more games than Ben Simmons. That's true. So maybe I am wrong on this island, and I should probably set sail soon. But I'm going to stay here for a little bit longer.
And I mean, I can absolutely see that argument. Embiid is an absolute dominant force. I think the only player that's probably on his level at that position is I reckon, Anthony Davis. And I mean, that's probably Anthony Davis playing probably the PF center, whereas Embiid's probably pure center. But again, I think that's probably the guy that I think if Embiid didn't have this moniker of being always injured, he gets mentioned in the same breath. The bloke's an absolute force when he's playing. We've seen that. And he's lost his attitude a little bit. For some reason, he curtailed it. He needs to bring that back. People love a villain, and I think he plays that perfectly. And you either love or you hate him. He's so polarizing, but you put him on the court, he absolutely dominates. And I think if he didn't get that, if he didn't have that tag that comes with him, the little asterisk saying that he's always injured, I think he gets mentioned in the breath top 5, top 10 players in the league. Absolutely, probably is anyway. And I think, he's probably unfairly criticised for the injuries. I don't think he's a soft player at all. I don't think in any way his injuries something that you could just walk off and play through. I think he stops because he's hurting, and it is a serious sort of injury. And like you said, with the finger injury, I mean, you use your fingers to play basketball. You don't have them, you're in a bit of strife. And he's getting belted every time he posts up. Every time he goes on the court, he's getting belted. I think I completely agree that the injury tag is probably a little bit overhyped, I guess, is probably the word I'm looking for in terms of Joel Embiid. I really like him, and I like that he does those. He got the cool drink that he built? What were they called? He started some company building a soft drink. One of those, I forgot what they're called. It'll come to me. But anyway, he did that as well, which is just a weird sort of cat thing to do. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. It's something a bit different. But in the West, how do you think the West shapes up? Do you think there's scope for movement?
So, I mean, it's kind of an easy pick, so I don't really want to go with it to say that the Warriors would be, the comeback team. So I'm not gonna pick the Warriors. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a look in the standings right now to see teams that are out of the playoffs that I think could have a chance. One team that I think has a good chance of, two teams actually, the Kings and the Pelicans. I think both the Kings and the Pelicans have a good chance of entering the playoff mix next year. The Pelicans probably even more so than the Kings. If Zion is healthy for his full season, and they still have Drew Holiday and Lonzo and Brandon Ingram, I really think the Pelicans. They also got Derek Favors if they're able to retain him. I think that with Zion there as like a defensive force, and Lonzo's a great defender, Drew Holiday's a great defender. Favors is not a terrible defender in the post. I'm very high on the Pelicans. I think they will be a playoff. I'm confident to say that the Pelicans will be a playoff team next year if Zion stays healthy. Now with the Kings, I hope I'm not taking one from you.
No, go for it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so with the Kings, I also think that they'll be a lot better next year if they're able to stay healthy. I think this year got out of hand for them because they had so many injuries, and they definitely have to figure out the Buddy Hield Bogdanovich situation. I don't think you can bring Buddy Hield off the bench unless he's willing to, and I'm just not sure that he's the type of guy who wants to come off the bench and have that Lou Williams type role. I think Buddy Hield wants to be a starter in the league, and I think Bogdanovich does too. So I just don't know how you appease both of those players. So I think that's one issue they have to resolve. But De'Aaron Fox, Marvin Bagley, if he's able to finally get on the court, and Rashawn Holmes, hoop balls guy himself, Rashawn, the Suns should have never let him go. I mean, the Suns get Rashawn Holmes and then Aaron Baines. Maybe they should just trade DeAndre Ayton away and bring back Rashawn Holmes and pair him with Aaron Baines. There's a pretty good center rotation right there.
100%.
So, yeah, I would say the Kings and the Pelicans for me. I would say the Pelicans, sure thing, playoff contender. The Kings, very much a contender, but I would not guarantee it.
Yeah, 100%.
What about yourself?
So, I mean, on the Pelicans, they've got guys like Jackson Hayes can take that next step. There's the depth of the Pelicans as well, completely agree. That is a team that is making noise, and we were seeing that up until the season went on pause, that they were making a run. Zion is just far and away going to be an absolute beast in this league, and he already is. I mean, the fact that there was rumblings for Rookie of the Year, and he played like 4 games, and you're sitting there going, Ja Morant been doing this all year, but not to this degree. This is a team that was just like wasting away, sort of not going to get a really good draft pick, but not going to make playoffs. That middle sort of area, like my Blazers, Rip City, and I think that's a team that absolutely makes that next step. Completely agree. I think we're going to see that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 probably area in the exact same situation next year. I think those teams are all going to be fighting for those bottom two spots in the playoff, pardon me. And, that's probably what's going to happen. I think amongst that is Memphis. I think they're going to take a big step again next year. Even though they did it this year, they're going to do it again. I think another team that's going to probably be a little bit better is probably the Phoenix Suns. I like that team as well. I think they're an exciting team. I think 8 and a whole season of him shows that they're going to win more games with him playing. But he lost 25 games. All of a sudden, you're in a hole. You've started. He was an absolute force when he played. Kelly Oubre was injured. He'll come back. Again, he looks like an absolute stud, and I don't know what Wizards did to waste him, but he was pretty good. They got Ricky Rubio there, he's a good player, as well as, of course, Devin Booker, who is an absolute stud. I think that guy is awesome, and he should be an all-star. As my guy Damian Lillard said, he should be in there, and he was the one that he picked to replace him. I'm hoping my Blazers come back. I hope they bounce back and find that that sort of consistency and that defensive mentality again that we'll get with Nurkic coming back. I think Whiteside gets, I don't know what happens with Whiteside. We've got him there. He's on an expiring deal. Whether or not we can bring him back cheaper, I don't think we can play both of them. We get Zach Collins back. Anthony Simons will take a jump. Gary Trent Jr. looks like an absolute stud. He's going to take a jump as well. The big thing we lost was, it was obvious this year, is that there was no Al-Farouq Aminu. There was no Ed Davis had left the year before, but he was gone. You lost Mo Harkless. All of these guys that you could throw at the opposing team's best player were shipped out, and that exposed us. We got Trevor Ariza back. All of a sudden, we started winning a few games because you needed someone that was willing to put the offensive game aside and play in their play just defense. Run around, sacrifice your shot. You're going to get a couple of corner threes, but we need you to lock LeBron down. We need you to lock down Steph Curry. We need you to lock down Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, guys like this. We didn't have that. Even Evan Turner leaving was, I was celebrating, but now he was another ball-handling guard that was of 6'5" who could play against those guys. And I think the Blazers have really suffered. That's a question mark for me. I think we could get worse. And I think if we don't do something in the off-season, we need to blow it up. And it hurts me to say it, but I think we need to blow it up if we don't do something of note. Whether it's a sign and trade with Hassan, or I think we have to stick with Nurkic. He's the proven guy over Hassan Whiteside. I like Whiteside. He's a good personality, but at the same time, we're not winning with you. Another team I think you mentioned them, and I have to say, is the Golden State Warriors are going to be straight back in. I think their team is, they're going to have Curry, Clay, Draymond will be healthy. Chris looks like an absolute stud. We'll hold on to him. I don't know where he came from. It's another Suns reject that they went and got, turned into a gun. You've got Damian Lee signed a couple-of-year deal. He looks like a gun as well. And then you're looking even beyond that to Obi Toppin. So, should they get him? That I think the Warriors is the sort of team. They got Wiggins as well, like I mentioned earlier. That team, you're not going to keep down a team that has culture like that. I think culture is something that's so underrated in the NBA. We see it a lot in the AFL and the Australian Football League. The culture, and even the NBL, the Australian culture is something that we pride ourselves on. If a team has a good culture, all of a sudden they're successful. And that's what they bring coaches in, they bring players in to build this culture. And I think that's what the Hawks are trying to do. They keep that team together. And I think the Warriors have proven that their culture is elite. And it starts from the top with the ownership, and they've worked their way down, and they've got rid of people that were probably of questionable I suppose, personalities. Monte Ellis was shipped off. I was a big fan of Monte throughout the journey. He was shipped off because he was carrying on with his phone and staff members. Guys like that, all of a sudden you've cleaned house. You see Steph Curry's a great guy. Draymond Green, yeah, he's a questionable character, but you can't fault his loyalty, and you can't fault how much he loves playing for the Warriors. He loves playing basketball. He loves playing basketball for the Warriors. So you can't fault that. He might be an idiot on the court and passionate and carrying on, but at the same time, you can't fault culture builders like that. Yeah, he's great in personality. And, Kevin Durant came in, and all of a sudden he was like, I love playing here. But then he got sick of it being Steph Curry's team. And you could see that. He was like, well, look, I just won you guys a championship when everyone went down, and it's still not my team. And you're like, it's never going to be. So, you make the decision, you get rid of him, you go and get D'Angelo Russell as an asset. That's just good business, so that you can ship him off again and get another good culture guy, or hopefully develop Wiggins into a good culture guy as well. I think that is the key, and I think the Warriors have it in spades. I don't think you keep them down, but that's just my Warriors rant, and yeah, go Warriors.
Hey, you got me. I need to. I don't know. Like I gotta. I feel good.
This is what happens. This is Saturday Night Live. It's passion. This is my Sunday morning. Imagine how hyped the rest of my day gets.
I got a question for you. I got a question for you on your Blazers. So in my dynasty league, I made a trade, and I sent off Wendell Carter Jr. And in exchange, I got a first-round pick back, which I had previously traded away. So I got a first-round pick, and I got Zach Collins and Justice Winslow, two guys who are dealing with injuries, looking to build for the future. So I actually traded away Zach Collins to the same guy for Kevin Huerter, and then I got him back in this trade. I got Winslow and Collins for Wendell Carter Jr. So my question to you is on Nurkic and Zach Collins. First, do you think that Zach Collins can defend the opponent's best player? Or do you think he's too big and more of a power forward, plays in the paint, and he can't guard wings? And then the second thing is, who do you think will be more impactful on the Blazers next year? Or who's more valuable for them? Is it Nurkic or Collins?
Yeah, well, I mean, I drafted Zach Collins in my leagues throughout. I think I've got him, I don't know, it would have been in the top 100, I guess, thereabouts. Really high on Zach Collins. Is unfortunate about his shoulder. When he was drafted, he was sort of a skinny, tall power forward. He then just obviously slept on it, like in the gym. He just got massive. And, that was a really good thing for him because he was getting pushed around. And you could sort of see that almost tweener tag coming at him. I think he's about 6'10", or 6'11", thereabouts. And he was too skinny and he wasn't being able to get that shot off, whereas he's a good three-point shooter as well. He's training with Myers Leonard, who's another good three-point shooter that we traded off, another guy, good culture guy that we lost. I think Nurkic is more important to the team, but I think Zach Collins plays the role that we haven't had this year. So there hasn't been a dominant power forward that we've been able to sit in there and just get a bucket, be able to stretch the floor as well at that power forward spot. I don't think he can play beyond. I don't think he can slide over to the three. I don't think he plays smaller than he is. He has to play on the guys that are 6'9" to 7 foot. He's strong enough now to do it, and he exploits those slower big men by being able to shoot the three. Really high on Zach Collins. If his shoulder comes good, and I'm no doubt it will, it was a dislocation. Obviously cooked everything up in there, and he had surgery and the like. And it was sad to see that because he looked like he was going to take that next leap. I think Zach Collins is very, very important to the Blazers coming back. However, in the current build of the team, Nurkic, because he's like 2 meters wide, has been so important for our pick and roll offense. That's we saw that against the Pelicans in the playoffs where we got swept, or 5. I think we went 4-1 or something, where AD and Rondo just absolutely murdered us because they they were able to read the pick and rolls too easy. But that's how Terry Stotts runs that offense. And it is Nurkic comes out, Lillard comes off a screen, either drives and lays it in, or he shoots a three from the top from 3-point line. Same as McCollum, you're able to get those shooters open because of the size of the bloke. Now, Hassan Whiteside in that same spot loves a fake screen. So he goes up, he goes, I'm going to screen, just joking, I'm going to go and get a lob. And no one's throwing that lob because we've got ball-dominant guards who are going to score. And I think that's where we fell down a lot, particularly on offense, is that we did not have that dominant center that was just a big body. We didn't have that big body, whether it was Collins who could do a pick and pop or a pick and roll, big unit, Nurkic, big unit. Even when we lost Scalabissiere, got injured as well, guys like that that were happy to set that big screen, that are long, tall, strong guys to be able to get those screens set and get the guys free. We just didn't have that. So I think Nurkic is the guy that we need to really get healthy and get him in there as quickly as possible, because I think he's the difference between us, being 10th or being top 4. I honestly think he's the guy. But I think Zach Collins plays a huge role as well. I think he's going to have a great season next year. Fingers crossed, because I just need this. It's been tough. It's been tough to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were a big fan. I was watching a little bit of Warriors game. They had a replay of Klay Thompson's 37-point game. So I had to, or 37-point quarter, rather. So I had to show my girlfriend that game so that she was aware of what happened that day. And I saw my old friend, Andrew Bogut. Now he was my favorite Australian player, probably my favorite Aussie. No offense, Lyle, but man, Andrew Bogut, that sounds like exactly what the Blazers need, is Andrew Bogut in his prime.
See, Bogut plays with Sydney Kings, and I don't have any time for the Sydney Kings, so don't worry about it. Bogut, so no, leave him or get him out of here. He bought into the Sydney Kings. He's a part owner of the Sydney Kings as well. Very vocal on social media. Big advocate for the game of basketball in Australia. Props to him for that. But he's also very polarising in terms of his comments that he makes. He's also an Essendon supporter, so he can't be happy with that in the AFL.
He's a what supporter?
Essendon, which is a AFL team in Melbourne, in the AFL, Aussie Rules football. For him, there's just too many things against him. But he absolutely is that sort of hard-nosed defender that the Blazers could use. But at the same time, he came out the other day and said, I wasn't healthy all year. And I was like, well, is that because you lost the grand final? Or, but, I completely agree. Guys like that, where you've got those stouch defenders, I'd love the Blazers to go and make a run at DeMarcus Cousins. Get him up there. If you can get him, we'll throw a little bit of extra money at him to go and get him. We're also forgetting the key cog in the Blazers outfit, which was Carmelo Anthony. Absolute scoring stud. I completely forgot about the bloke. I was thinking who was playing small forward, but it was him. And Ariza sat alongside him. We've got this resurgent fresh legs Melo who's just been lighting it up. Again, can't defend to save his life, but at the same time has been forced to go and get a lot of rebounds, which has been all right. I think Zach Collins slots in over the top of him. And we'll see what happens with Melo, whether he retires or not. But, he was that scoring punch that we definitely needed. If we could get a guy like, DeMarcus Cousins, if we could go, and even Vucevic would be perfect because he's the exact size bloke that we need that we could sit in there. If we could trade Whiteside for Vucevic, I'd be happy with that. Who else? And I'm still salty that you said Bogut was your favourite Australian, because I'm right here. But at the same time, I do think that sort of build that Andrew Bogut, big unit. Aaron Baines would be great. He's tough. That's what you want. You want these tough Australians that can go.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, Lyle, my apologies there, but Andrew Bogut helped me win the first championship as a Warrior fan that I have. That'll always have a soft spot in my heart right there.
Yeah, and I haven't won any championships, so that's fair. And I always slip the screens. I'd never take any body contact. I'm down. Give me
You're the Hassan Whiteside? Going for the lob?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If I could jump, give me a step ladder, I'll be up there. But I do think the Blazers hopefully can get it together, and I think that's a team. I think the Warriors are going to be on the up and up, and absolutely the Pelicans. I've been doing a little bit of research in the Pelicans pod, in the Pelicans information, because I'm looking at getting that Pelicans pod running again. Perhaps that might be on the cards, that I might be tagged to do that. There is some rumblings in the off season. I don't know if I'm allowed to officially announce that. We have. So make sure we're tuning into that when that gets happening. Learning a whole heap about New Orleans. So the stud Drew Holiday and co. We'll see what happens, but. That could also be a thing to keep your eye out on the Hoopball Network. Do we have anything to plug before we put a pin in this, Steve? What do you reckon?
I just keep tuned into Hoopball. Like I said, we're going to be doing these seasons so far. So we'll have all 30 teams covered by our writers here. And then we also got, the man himself, Dan Vespris, plugging away, still doing shows, even though he just had a kid the other day, his second kid. So he's still plugging away over there. So just keep tuning in and read our articles. We'll be posting one every day or every other day, I'm not sure, for each team. That'll be like a synopsis, more just written word. And then there'll be another one, a subsequent article that'll be more of a snapshot from a purely fantasy perspective. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we've still got plenty going on, even though there's no basketball being played. There's still plenty to do, and there's still plenty to see over at Hoopball. We've got great sponsors over there. Make sure we're still supporting those guys. mybookie.ag. We're looking at Kona Coffee. Everyone needs a coffee. I've got one right here. They shipped us. I don't know where the camera is. There it is. Make sure we're supporting those guys, because these are the guys that could drop off, and make sure we're getting into the Hoopball. We're bringing all of this live and free. There's the premium shows, which are now no longer premium. We've been doing those. There's a Wednesday or Thursday, I think they were coming up as well. There's still plenty going on, and we're in isolation, but it doesn't mean that we might be social distancing, but we're not. Yeah, we might be physically distancing, but we're not social distancing. So, you can still keep up with what's going on. You can still come and chat to us, send us a tweet, send us an email, send us a Facebook, whatever you want. Make sure you head over to the Facebook page. This will be uploaded there directly after we finish here. So make sure we go and have a look at that. Keeping the Facebook alive is my little pet project, and it's getting there. We've got less basketball to talk about, which makes it a bit difficult, but make sure we're tuning in. There's still plenty to do on the Hoopball Network. I think we might put a pin in it. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, that sounds good. The one other comment I wanted to say from last week is I looked up the rules and I watched some of the Aussie Rules Football League. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I watched. There was a team with one individual, and I watched the highlights, and there was one guy who actually stood out. I know there's 18 players on the pitch at any one time or something, or.
Yeah, 18 players.
Yeah, 18, and there was one guy who I saw in the frame like 7 times. It was just highlights, but there was one player who just looked far and above better than everyone else. I wish I remembered his name so I could, be cool and talk Aussie football. I don't even remember. I don't remember what team.
Well, there are some. Absolute,
when is the final happening still?
No, they've canned it all. So at the moment, we're on hold. So after I plugged it on Sunday, the last game was played that afternoon. So, that's all on hold. I think it got to the point there was one of the team's staffers got confirmed positive with COVID. So, they put a pin in it for the safety of it. We also went into the next level of lockdown. So I think it was less than 100 people. I think we're even less than that now. And no interstate travel, or very restricted interstate travel, only essential. So, that put a bit of a pin in being able to play. So the West Coast couldn't go to the East Coast and vice versa. And yeah, bit of a shame, but at the same time, all for the best to work it out. And I think they'll rejig it. I think they were going to have a look 15th of April to, I think it's when the next payment's due for the players. So they've been working out reduced salaries and stuff like that at the moment. So there's a bit going on in the AFL in the background, which they're working through. But at the same time, I just miss sport. I miss sport in general. You know.
Yeah, I was looking forward to watching the finals. I was actually like trying to learn about it and gonna tune in. So maybe when the finals happen, if we still don't have basketball, I'll tune in and then check it out.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just the start of the season. So we only had the first round. So they were talking about reducing it to 17, and then our finals is playoffs. But they I don't know when this is going to come back. I think over here we're only just starting to see the beginning of it, and I think we're probably another, I don't know, maybe a few months before we look at opening things like that back up, unfortunately. But, that's my prediction. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about this. Just washing my hands a lot.
Yep.
But, I think, what do we think?
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Hoopballs. Thank you, Steve, for joining me. This has been Saturday Night Lyle. I'm Lyle Swithenbank. This has been Steve Vidovich, and we'll see you next week.